Hello, welcome to another video. In this video, we talk about Marcellian, the Golden Emperor of the Nacarthan Empire. As you can tell, I'm deciding to go with a little bit of a color difference. Instead of a gray background, I'm going to have a black one and some white texts. Please comment if you think I should use this or refer back to what I was using before. Anyways, let's begin. Marcellian was born in the year 391 of the Second Era. He was born not in the Nacarthan Empire, but in Goldland, which, with this mouse, we can see that Goldland is southwest of the continent. His father, Arcaritas I, was on a diplomatic mission to make some allies in Goldland due to some wars going on between them and kingdoms in Mythia, which were being hard to manage along with the religious conflicts. Arcaritas, however, decided not to take Marcellian in and decide to abandon him, wanting to avoid a scandal, hoping that he would die in Goldland so that he could avoid a scandal because Marcellian wasn't born in the Nacarthan Empire. Marcellian did not have an education in his youth. He was a self-made man who learned many of his lessons through the hard way. When he turned 21, he opened his first mine, making it the first successful business he was able to own. He found out of his mother and father's identity when he was only 8 years old, and these businesses were meant to fund his way to go to the city of Nartha, becoming emperor. In the year 414, Marcellian left Goldland and made his way into Nartha. By the next year, he managed to arrive and demand to see his father. After being kicked out of the royal palace and offering nobles tax breaks and better and kind of a more decentralized empire, he was able to gather an army of 70,000 men and march into the city. He demanded to see after an intense interaction where Marcellian told Arcaritas to make him heir or he would burn down all of his mines and potentially usurp the throne, Arcaritas agreed to make him heir. Marcellian would then go on to bludgeon his brother to death with a mace, nearly get arrested. Well, he did get arrested, but he managed to buy his way out of jail. And in 417, Arcaritas died. 2 years later, Marcellian inherited the throne due to being the heir to the throne. And we're going to backtrack to the mines for a second, because the gold mines are very important. So the mines of the numeral family, specifically the emperor, were very important to the finances of the empire. And now, by eliminating these finances, you see that there's a significant decline in the finances of the empire by burning down these mines. And so that's why you see Arcaritas accepts Marcellian's deal. Marcellian made some very important reforms to the empire. He reduced the taxes of the peasantry and nobility, which were raised in the time of Arcaritas to help fund wars. Lowering these taxes of both sides allowed for him to gain support and allowed for him to solidify his rule. It also gave the peasants an easier life, which meant they were more happy and content living under his rule. He allowed for taxes and tariffs to be paid in silver, gems, or other luxurious metals. This was a very important reform because now he could diversify the economy and thus prevent inflation of gold. And then finally, he introduced a small tax on trade, which increased the revenue of the empire. Specifically, when a merchant would enter into a city, they would have to pay a small tax in order to trade the stuff in the city. The tax was low enough to where the merchants wouldn't be too unhappy with it, and the money would go at first to funding city projects and improving the lives of the citizens. This is what Marcellian did. And then another thing he did was he used some of his newfound money to fund and raise and improve the army, increasing its numbers and then increasing the pay, leading to one of the most professional armies in the world by far. And then finally, probably his most important reform, other than the taxes, well, third most important, I should say, He reduced the power of the Anvin Guard by removing their status as bodyguards to the emperor. You see, the Anvin Guard had been quite powerful at this point, and they even controlled figures such as Arcuritas and Sago II, and so on and so on. And now, with removing the Anvin Guard from this position, he was able to essentially control himself. In his reign, the Nekarthan Empire went under a period of near golden age with these reforms. With the introduction of a low tax on trade, he used these to fund his city projects, allowing him to use his own wealth for other means. This would be used in the year 431 to begin the conquest of Goldland, where he still had several operational mines. And it was also split into many different kingdoms and feuding states. By 432, he was able to subjugate most of Goldland, but fighting would only continue 4 years until in 436, which is when the fighting ended. And then to religion. In the year 434, Marcellian called forth in the city of Nartha a meeting between many religious figures. In this meeting, which would become known as the Moon Conference, Marcellian and the Numo family recognized the right to choose one's own religion. This was a major stepping stone in the empire, as now the empire officially respected and recognized the freedom of the people, peasants and nobility, to choose their own beliefs, which was rare in most places. Religious conflicts continued throughout the ages, but none would cause the millions of deaths that they used to before this. An economic boom. With the revenue of the empire greatly increased, the wealth of the empire was able to significantly grow. This allowed for the emperor's administrators to use more of the money, which under Marcellian's reign was put to good use. In the future, however, this would only become a problem, as this would lead to the overspending of the monarchy, the rich, and the ruling class, who would, after Marcellian's reign, continue to spend lavishly even if there wasn't the money to do so. But for the time, the empire entered into an economic boom, which saw the rise of the peasantry, as now the peasants had to pay less taxes, and as you know, the economy was getting better, and actually peasants were actually becoming a lot richer. And also you see that the economy is also diversified, which prevents the inflation of one particular source. And then there's Goldland. In 437, the Treaty of Goshgan was signed. In this treaty, all of the territory in Goldland swore an oath of loyalty to Marcellian. With his mines in Goldland, along with the many metals in Goldland, mainly gold, the economy boomed in the Nekarthan Empire with a sudden stream of wealth. This became such an issue that 10 years later, he had to introduce heavy limitations in the use of gold to prevent large-scale inflation from taking place in the use of gold. The inflation nearly got to a point in which it could have ruined a large part of the monarchy's wealth and could have even led to the bankruptcy of the monarchy and the ruling class. But luckily for them, new materials, mainly gems and other metals, began to replace gold, and it became rarer again, bringing up the wealth of gold in the empire. So essentially, a lot of people owned gold, and if gold was becoming useless, then by how fast it was, you wouldn't be able to collect enough gold to make up for the inflation. And so you would see the wealth of the families and the powerful people significantly decline, which nearly happened. But luckily for them, this didn't happen, and things didn't turn into a crisis. New goods from afar. In the year 446, Marcellian established trade with the continent of Vanza. Specifically, he traded with the Hukakadian Empire, which itself was a powerful and rich empire. The Jew would trade from the Hukakadia silk and luxurious cloths and rare Orcanium metal, and in return, the Nekarthans would give them gold from Goldland, along with slaves which would be brought to Vanza. Now, there would be many other things traded between them, but these were some of the more larger kind of attractions by each side. Speaking of slaves, in the year 449, to the dismay of certain nobility, Marcellian made into law the regulation on the use of slaves. Under these new laws, slaves were given basic human rights, and slave owners were not able to abuse their slaves, such as beating them, starving them, or other cruel punishments. You see some minor noble revolts, but nothing comes of this. Now, this is another one of his important reforms because now you're seeing that he's actually protecting the rights of slaves, and now slaves are recognized with, though they're still slaves, they have a right to not be abused while they're being enslaved or whatever. So this is a pretty huge bonus for these slaves who now, on a general level, slowly improve the conditions which can eventually lead to the abolishment of slavery, which doesn't happen in the Carthage Empire, but it's a stepping stone into further reforms. Long-term consequences. We have to talk about some of the consequences that happened during his reign, some of which were caused by him, others might not have been. Marcellian's reign saw a great increase in the power of the monarchy, leading to a reliance of the strength of the emperor. So essentially what this means is you needed a strong emperor, a strong and charismatic and an emperor that knows what he's doing. And so with this reliance, you do see, like under Marcellian's reign, a golden age because he knows what to do, he knows how to be emperor. But after his reign, after he dies and some of his successors aren't as capable to rule, well, you're going to see the decline of the Carthage Empire in the future. And with this, the new and sudden influx of money, large amounts of it, caused a culture where the nobility and the aristocracy and the wealthy began to overly spend their money on lavish things, which kind of creates a culture where the nobility and these rich people are spending way too much on useless things that don't improve the empire whatsoever. And then Goldland would actually become an unprofitable province, and it would actually become more expensive to maintain over time than it would be profitable, but this was mainly caused due to the numerous wars between the Goldland tribes and the Carthage forces, who fought for control over resources, manpower, and, that stuff. Despite his many reforms, he escalated the killings in Algamore, which led to, well, many things, which would lead to the Algamore Divicta. The Algamore Divacta. The Algamore Divacta refers to a period of time in Algamore history where rebellions in Algamore were near continuous. Under Marcellian nearly pillaged Agamagnus to the ground, the people took up arms, and large-scale rebellions would happen all across Algamore. Despite many victories and defeats, the emperors of the future would have to deal with the many revolts in Algamore, which would cause many problems. 1, finances. 2, the distraction of soldiers, of valuable resources and soldiers of the army to be deployed somewhere else, and so on and so on. Combined with overspending of the monarchy, and then later the incompetence of the monarchy, things would only get bad after the death of Marcellian's grandson, Ramalov I. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you who takes a bit of time off of your day to watch my videos. If you like the video, make sure you can like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. That's not necessary, but it would be nice if you could do that. I would also appreciate it if you would interact with kind of my community posts, which I make quite frequently. I always post quizzes and fun facts and everything once every day or so. I'm not too consistent, but I try my best to be somewhat interactive. And that's it. So I hope each and every one of you has a good day and night, and I hope to see you another time.